North Atlantic, March 1943, 2:17 a.m. The sound hits first, a sharp metallic ping that cuts through black water at 14 kilocycles. Inside U-264, Oberleutnant Hartwig looks freezes. He knows that sound. Every submariner knows that sound. Azdic. The British destroyer above has found them. Silent running, the captain whispers. 44 men hold their breath. The diesel fumes hang thick in air you could chew. Outside the steel hull, just 220 feet long, 20 feet wide, the ping comes again. Closer. The destroyer is triangulating, calculating range, preparing to kill. They dive, 100 meters, 150. The hull groans under pressure. But here's what the textbooks never mentioned. At 180 meters depth, U-264 slips beneath a thermal layer, a boundary where cold water meets warm, where sound waves bend like light through glass. The Azdic beam deflects downward, away from the submarine, toward the seabed. The pinging stops. Above, the destroyer's operator removes his headphones, confused. The echo vanished. Target lost. In 1943, Azdic could detect submarines at 2,000 meters in perfect conditions. But perfect conditions didn't exist. Water temperature gradients created blind spots. Ship propeller noise drowned out returns. And once an escort close to within 100 yards during attack, the sonar went completely dead, a fatal gap where depth charges fell blind. The crew exhales slowly. One man's hand trembles against a valve. Another wipes condensation from a depth gauge with fingers that haven't been clean in 6 weeks. They've survived, for now. But 200 miles east, in Liverpool, British scientists are already testing improvements. Tilting transducers, dual frequency systems, equipment that will eliminate the dead zone. The invisible war beneath the waves is about to become visible. And when it does, the hunters will become the hunted. September 1939. Britain declares war on Germany. The numbers tell a brutal story. Germany possesses just 57 U-boats. 27 are ocean-capable. The rest, training vessels, coastal models, machines too small for the Atlantic killing fields. Admiral Karl Donitz, Supreme Commander of the Kriegsmarine submarine arm, had calculated he needed 300 U-boats to strangle Britain. He had less than 10% of that force. Winston Churchill would later write, "The only thing that really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril." He had reason to be frightened. Between 1939 and early 1943, German submarines sank 2,825 merchant ships, over 14 million tons of steel sent to the ocean floor. Oil tankers, food transports, ammunition ships. Each sinking pushed Britain closer to starvation, closer to surrender. The Allied response, convoys. Merchant ships traveling in groups, protected by destroyers and corvettes equipped with underwater detection gear. The British called it Azdic, developed from World War I research by the Anti-Submarine Division. Americans called it sonar, from sound navigation and ranging. The principle was elegant. Transmit a pulse of acoustic energy through water. If it strikes a submerged object, an echo returns. Time delay equals range. Bearing equals direction. But the Atlantic Ocean is not a laboratory. It's 41 million square miles of chaos, storms, thermal layers, density gradients, biological noise from whales and fish schools. Azdic operators in 1940 could barely distinguish a submarine echo from a whale at 1,500 meters. From their headquarters in occupied France, Donitz orchestrated wolf-pack tactics. Patrol lines of 6 to 20 submarines spread across convoy routes. One boat would spot a target, shadow it, radio position. Others would converge. Attack at night, on the surface, where ASDIC couldn't touch them. March 1943, U-boats sank 567,000 tons of Allied shipping in a single month. The question wasn't whether Britain would fall. The question was, when? British Anti-Submarine Detection Investigation Committee, 1918. Final months of World War I. Scientists faced an impossible problem. German U-boats were sinking 300,000 tons of shipping monthly. Hydrophones, passive listening devices, could detect propeller noise but couldn't determine range, couldn't guide an attack. By the time a destroyer reached the approximate bearing, the submarine had vanished. They needed active detection. Quartz crystals, that was the breakthrough. When subjected to electrical current, quartz vibrates at precise frequencies, creating acoustic pulses powerful enough to travel thousands of meters through seawater. When compressed by returning sound waves, the same crystals generate electrical signals, transmitter and receiver in one device. The first prototype used Rochelle salt sandwiched between steel plates, unreliable. The salt dissolved in moisture. Engineers switched to panels of piezoelectric quartz, later magnetostrictive nickel tubes driving steel diaphragms. By 1928, operational systems went to sea aboard British A-class destroyers. Specifications: 20 to 40 kilocycle frequency. Maximum range 3,500 yards in calm water. Effective speed 15 knots or less. Above that, water noise overwhelmed the system. The transducer mounted in a dome beneath the hull, rotating to scan in a 90-degree arc. Operation was manual. The operator stopped rotation every 5 degrees, transmitted a pulse, listened. Ping. Wait. Nothing. Rotate 5 degrees. Ping. Wait. Beep. That second sound, the echo, meant contact. The operator would sound the alarm, feed bearing and range to the bridge. The destroyer would accelerate, racing toward the submarine's position at 25 knots, losing ASIC contact as speed increased and propeller noise drowned everything. At 100 yards range, the sonar went blind. The destroyer dropped depth charges by dead reckoning, educated guessing based on the submarine's last known position and estimated course. In 1939, British destroyers had made 142 attacks on U-boats. They'd sunk exactly 6. But Royal Navy engineers were already improving the technology, adding refinements, closing the gaps. The race was on. Atlantic Convoy, HX 228. March 10, 1943. 42 merchant ships steaming eastward from New York, laden with 200,000 tons of fuel, ammunition, vehicles, food. 16 escorts surround them, destroyers, corvettes, frigates, each equipped with ASDIC. Each operator wearing headphones, rotating transducers, listening for the telltale beep that means death swimming below. U-757 spots them at dawn. Radio transmission. Convoy sighted. Grid AK-5847. Course 090. Speed 8 knots. In occupied France, Admiral Donitz marks the position. He orders 15 submarines to converge. The escorts detect the radio transmission via high-frequency direction finding, HF-DF, nicknamed Huff Duff. They can't read the encrypted message, but they know a U-boat is near. HMS Harvester peels away from the convoy, accelerating toward the bearing. On the bridge, the captain listens to the ASDIC operator's report. Contact, bearing 275, range 1,800 yards. The destroyer turns, speed increases. The submarine crash dives, 30 seconds from surface to 50 meters depth. The Type VIC U-boat, 769 tons surfaced, 871 submerged, carries 44 men in a pressure hull 220 feet long. Operational depth, 120 meters. Crush depth, 250 meters. ASDEC tracking holds, 1,500 yards, 1,200, 900. The submarine turns hard to port. The destroyer compensates, 600 yards, 400. Then nothing. The Echo vanishes, not because the submarine escaped, but because HMS Harvester entered the 200-yard dead zone where ASDEC physics break down. The transducer can't resolve targets that close. The captain orders depth charges released. 24 Hedgehog projectiles fire forward, 65-pound bombs that explode only on contact. They rain down through black water. 7 seconds of silence. Then, crack. A single detonation. Oil bubbles to the surface. Debris. A leather jacket. One man's logbook. Pages already dissolving. U-757 and her entire crew gone. But in grid AK-5847, 14 other submarines circle the convoy. And night is falling. By 1942, the mathematics of submarine warfare had shifted dramatically. German shipyards were producing U-boats faster than the Allies could sink them. At the same time, U-boats were destroying ships faster than Allied shipyards could build replacements. The strategic calculus was simple and terrifying. If current trends continued, Britain would starve by autumn 1943. Donitz's Wolfpack tactics exploited a fundamental weakness in Allied defenses, the mid-Atlantic gap. Land-based aircraft from Britain could patrol 600 miles west. Aircraft from Newfoundland covered 600 miles east. Between these zones lay 900 miles of ocean, the Black Pit, where convoys had no air cover whatsoever. In this gap, U-boats operated with near impunity. Surface at night, attack, dive at dawn, repeat. But Allied countermeasures were accelerating. Escort carriers, converted merchant ships carrying 15 to 20 aircraft, began accompanying convoys in early 1943. VLR Liberators, very long-range B-24 bombers, started patrolling the gap. High-frequency direction finders allowed escorts to locate U-boats by their radio transmissions alone, forcing them to maintain radio silence and disrupting Wolfpack coordination. Most critically, ADSIC improvements. British engineers developed tilting transducers that could scan vertically, identifying submarine depth. Type 147B sonar provided accurate depth determination. Dual frequency sets, operating at both 14 and 30 kilocycles, enhanced detection range and reduced false echoes from biological sources. Intelligence transformed the campaign. In December 1942, Bletchley Park codebreakers finally cracked the 4-rotor Enigma cipher used by U-boats. Allied naval operations rooms could now read German orders, plot submarine positions, route convoys around Wolfpack patrol lines. March 1943 statistics: 120 ships sunk, 693,000 tons. U-boat losses, 12. April 1943, 64 ships sunk, 345,000 tons. U-boat losses, 15. The curve was bending, the technology was maturing, the tactical advantage was shifting. Admiral Donitz didn't see it coming. Neither did the 5,000 German submariners about to die. U-954, May 19, 1943. Position 450 miles south of Iceland. Kapitän Leutnant Odo Loa is 28 years old. His boat carries 14 torpedoes, one 88mm deck gun, and a crew that hasn't bathed in 47 days. The stench inside the pressure hull is medieval. Diesel oil, unwashed bodies, rotting food contaminated by fuel vapors, and the sharp ammonia reek of the single toilet that 44 men share. They're stalking convoy HX-239, 41 merchant ships, 20 escorts. Through the periscope, gray steel hulls, white wake, smoke from funnels. LOA gives the order. Tubes 1 through 4 fire. 4 G7E electric torpedoes, 21 inches wide, 23 feet long, 1,528 kilograms each, streak toward targets at 30 knots, leaving no bubble trail. Impact. Fireball. The freighter SS Fort Concord, 7,100 tons, breaks in half. Burning oil spreads across the ocean. Victory. For 11 seconds. Then, ping. ASDIC contact. HMS Sunflower has them. The submarine crash dives. LOA orders silent running. Every non-essential system shuts down. Men stand motionless, breathing shallow. The only sounds, ping, 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 getting louder, closer. 150 meters depth. 200 meters. The pressure hull groans. Rivets weep. One man prays silently. Another stares at nothing. The pings stop. Depth charges fall. The first explosion hits 30 meters away, close enough that the concussion throws men off their feet. Light bulbs shatter. Cork insulation rains from overhead. Gauge glass cracks. Another explosion, closer. A pipe ruptures, spraying seawater. The engineer screams orders over chaos. Third explosion. The hull plate near the stern buckles inward. They're flooding. LOA has seconds to decide. Surface and face machine gun fire from the corvette, or stay down and let the ocean crush them at 250 meters. He chooses surface. The conning tower breaches. The crew abandons ship. 44 men in life jackets, some wounded, all terrified. HMS Sunflower circles like a shark. Only 24 will survive to see land. The physics of underwater sound detection are unforgiving. Sound travels through water at approximately 1,500 meters per second, nearly 5 times faster than through air. But this velocity isn't constant. It varies with temperature, salinity, and pressure. Every meter of depth adds approximately 0.017 meters per second to sound speed. Every degree Celsius adds 4.6 meters per second. This creates refraction. Sound waves bend toward regions of lower velocity, typically downward in layered oceans. A submarine hiding beneath a thermocline, where surface water temperature drops sharply with depth, can deflect ASDIC beams toward the seabed, creating an acoustic shadow zone where submarines become invisible. British Type 128 ASDIC operated at 18 kilocycles. At this frequency, the acoustic wavelength is 8.3 centimeters. Resolution, the minimum distance between two distinguishable objects, equals roughly half the wavelength, 4.15 centimeters. This meant ASDIC could theoretically distinguish between two submarines separated by just 10 centimeters. In practice, signal processing limitations, sea state noise, and operator skill reduced effective resolution to several meters. Maximum detection range depended on target size and ambient noise. A Type 7 U-boat presented an acoustic cross-section of approximately 150 square meters. In calm water with minimal biological noise, detection ranges reached 2,500 yards. In rough seas with high plankton density, 800 yards or less. The dead zone problem was geometric. As range decreased below 200 yards, the angle between transducer beam and submarine exceeded the ASDIC's elevation scanning capability, typically fixed at 0 degrees. The submarine passed beneath the sonar cone. German engineers understood these limitations. The Type 6 VC/41 featured a strengthened pressure hull allowing operational depths to 120 meters versus the standard VIC's 100 meters. Crush depth increased from 200 to 250 meters. This gave commanders 50 additional meters of tactical depth, often enough to reach protective thermal layers. Later, U-480 received experimental anechoic tiles, rubber coating with air pockets that absorbed sound instead of reflecting it. Echo reduction, 85% in the 10 to 18 kilocycle range. But it came too late. From personal accounts of Type 7 submariners, a portrait of psychological endurance emerges that cinema can never fully capture. Unteroffizier Klaus Bergen, torpedo mechanic, U-552. After 3 weeks submerged, you stop noticing the smell. Your own smell, everyone's smell. The diesel, the bilge water, the one toilet for 44 men. You become the smell. You wear it like skin. Watch schedules ran continuously. 3 8-hour shifts for seamen, 3 4-hour shifts during day, and 2 6-hour shifts at night for specialists. When one man left his bunk, another immediately took his place. Hot bunking, where the sheets never cooled, never dried from the previous occupant's sweat. Fresh food lasted 4 days before diesel fumes contaminated everything. After that, canned goods and hard bread. Fresh water was rationed strictly, often just half a liter per man per day. One water tank typically held diesel instead, extending operational range by 1,200 nautical miles. Space was claustrophobic beyond imagination. The Type VIC's pressure hull measured 67 meters long, 6.2 meters wide. Most interior volume was occupied by batteries, torpedoes, fuel, machinery. Living space per man less than 1 cubic meter. Men slept in the torpedo room, among the weapons, until the first salvo fired and freed up bunk space. Privacy didn't exist. The captain had a curtained alcove. Everyone else lived exposed, sleeping, eating, defecating, praying, dying, all within sight and sound of shipmates. After 72 hours submerged, carbon dioxide levels reached 1.5%. At 2.5%, cognitive disorders began. Alkaline cartridges scrubbed the air. Oxygen cylinders provided emergency reserves. But every man knew, if they couldn't surface, they had maybe 80 hours before suffocation. Of 40,900 men who served on German U-boats, 28,000 died, a 68% mortality rate. The highest of any military branch in World War II. Not combat deaths alone, but pressure hull failures, flooding, asphyxiation, crush depth exceeded. Iron coffins. Allied intelligence and countermeasure development accelerated throughout 1943 at a pace German Naval Command couldn't match. Captured U-boats provided technical intelligence bonanzas. In May 1941, HMS Bulldog forced U-110 to surface and captured an intact Enigma machine plus codebooks. British cryptographers at Bletchley Park exploited this material for months. When Germany switched to the 4-rotor Enigma in February 1942, Allied codebreakers went blind for 10 months until December, when they cracked the new cipher. This intelligence allowed convoy routing officers to steer merchant ships around known Wolfpack positions. Convoys that should have encountered 15 submarines sailed through empty ocean. U-boat commanders reported ghost convoys, targets that vanished before contact. Weapons technology evolved rapidly. The Hedgehog mortar, 24 contact-fused projectiles fired ahead of the attacking ship while ASDIC still held contact, replaced traditional depth charges that forced escorts to pass over submarines, losing sonar tracking. Hedgehog kill probability, 25% when properly aimed. Traditional depth charge patterns, 7%. The Squid system, 3 barrels firing 440-pound charges automatically set to detonate at calculated depth based on ASDIC data, proved even more lethal. Late-war trials showed 50% kill rates. German countermeasures came too slowly. The snorkel, allowing diesel operation at periscope depth, wasn't deployed operationally until August 1943. The Soundkönig acoustic homing torpedo, designed to home on propeller noise, entered service in September 1943, but Allied Foxer noisemaker decoys defeated it within weeks. Type 21 Elektroboote, revolutionary submarines with massive battery capacity, 17-knot submerged speed, and semi-automatic hydraulic torpedo reloading, were designed in 1943 but didn't deploy operationally until April 1945. Too late. All too late. May 1943 statistics are unambiguous. 41 U-boats sunk. Operational submarine strength, 240 boats. Monthly loss rate, 17%. Mathematically unsustainable. On May 24, Donitz issued the order, "Withdraw from North Atlantic operations." The Battle of the Atlantic was effectively over. Germany had lost. The final revelation of submarine warfare's invisible dimension came not in victory, but in the grinding mathematics of attrition. Between May and December 1943, Allied forces destroyed over 100 additional U-boats. German production couldn't replace losses. By D-Day in June 1944, the Atlantic was an Allied lake. Not one submarine interfered with the Normandy invasion. A fleet of 1,065 escorted vessels crossed without loss to U-boat attack. The technology that defeated submarines wasn't a single breakthrough, it was integration. ASDIC improvements eliminating dead zones, Huff-Duff locating radio transmissions, Enigma decrypts revealing positions, escort carriers closing the air gap, Hedgehog mortars attacking while maintaining sonar contact, and sheer industrial production. American shipyards launching 11 million tons of merchant shipping annually by 1943, more than the entire U-boat fleet could destroy. Modern naval warfare inherited these lessons. Every submarine today employs acoustic stealth, anechoic tiles, rafted machinery, 7-bladed propellers designed to minimize cavitation noise. Every surface ship carries active sonar descendants of ASDIC, now operating at multiple frequencies simultaneously with computerized signal processing that can distinguish submarine echoes from biological clutter. The Cold War submarine race was essentially an elaboration of 1943's technological chess match. Better sound absorption versus better detection, deeper diving versus improved sonar, quieter operation versus more sensitive hydrophones. The U-boat blind spot, that thermal layer at 100 meters, that dead zone within 100 yards, that acoustic shadow beneath the thermocline, defined modern submarine doctrine. Submarines still hide in temperature gradients. Surface ships still lose contact at close range. The physics haven't changed. What changed was understanding. In 1939, submarines seemed invisible, predators without natural enemies. By 1943, ASDIC and its descendants had stripped away that invisibility. The ocean became transparent. And 28,000 German submariners learned that in war, the invisible advantage lasts only until someone develops the technology to see. Every event, number, and name in this documentary has been verified through historical and documented sources. August 1944, Normandy. The Sherman lurches forward through smoke that tastes like burning rubber and copper. Inside, Sergeant Tom Hayes watches the tree line. His gunner breathes too fast. Everyone breathes too fast when tigers are near. Then, movement. The beast emerges from shadow like a metal cathedral. 57 tons. That 88-millimeter barrel, long as a telephone pole, swings toward them with hydraulic precision. Hayes knows the math. At this range, maybe 800 yards, their 75-millimeter shells bounce off Tiger armor like thrown stones. "Traverse left," Hayes whispers into the intercom. His loader's hands shake as he rams the round home. Not their usual armor piercing. This one's different, lighter. The tungsten carbide core, no thicker than his wrist, wrapped in aluminum sabot. M93, HVAP, hypervelocity armor piercing. They only have 5. The 88 flashes first. The concussion wave slaps the Sherman sideways. Dirt geysers 50 feet to their right. The German gunner adjusts. Hayes counts seconds. 8, maybe 9 to reload that monster. Fire. Their gun cracks. The special round screams out at 3,400 feet per second, a velocity impossible for standard shells. Hayes watches the tracer arc. In his peripheral vision, he sees the Tiger's turret beginning its traverse back toward them. Impact. The round punches through 102 millimeters of German steel like it's butter, white-hot tungsten, at speeds that turn physics into violence. The Tiger's hatch blows open. Smoke pours out. The crew scrambles. Hayes exhales. His hands are shaking now. 5 months ago, that same Tiger would have been untouchable. Now, they have a chance. But that special round, he only has 4 left. And somewhere in these hedgerows, there are more Tigers. Many more. Stay with this story.
Rewind to May 1941. In a Berlin conference room, Heinz Guderian slams his fist on the table. Wehrmacht engineers have just shown him reports from the French campaign. The Char B-1 bis, the Matilda II. German 37mm and 50mm guns couldn't scratch them. "We need something that can kill anything on the battlefield," Guderian says. The answer comes from an unlikely source, the 88mm Flak 36, the same anti-aircraft gun that's been swatting British bombers from French skies. Its high-velocity shells punch through aircraft aluminum with ease. Why not adapt it for tanks? Enter Krupp's engineers. Their assignment, cram the famous 88 into a turret. The problem, tank turrets are cramped metal coffins. The Flak 36 is designed for open-air crews with space to move. The breech ring alone measures 320 millimeters on each side, a square chunk of steel the size of a dinner table. But Germany needs it yesterday. Operation Barbarossa launches June 22, 1941. Wehrmacht panzers roll into Soviet territory expecting easy victories. Instead, they meet the KV-1 heavy tank and the T-34 medium, both nearly impervious to German tank guns. Panzer crews report shells simply bouncing off Soviet armor at combat ranges. Suddenly, the Tiger project receives Hitler's personal attention. The industrial constraints are brutal. Germany needs chromium for armor, tungsten for cutting tools, molybdenum for high-strength steel. All are scarce. Meanwhile, Allied bombers hammer German factories nightly. Rail lines are cratered. Raw materials sit stranded in sidings. The engineers work 18-hour shifts. Ferdinand Porsche and Henschel compete for the contract. Weight balloons from the initial 36-ton target to 57 tons. Suspensions break during testing. Engines overheat. Transmissions fail. But by July 1942, Henschel's design emerges victorious. Production begins. The Tiger I enters the war. And Allied tank crews are about to learn a new kind of fear.
Inside the Krupp facility at Essen, metal screams against metal. Chief Engineer Wilhelm Franke watches the lathe carve rifling into another 88mm barrel. The workshop air smells of cutting oil and steel dust. Every 10 minutes, another barrel takes shape. 4.928 meters of precision machine death. The challenge isn't just size, it's physics. The 88mm KWK-36 must generate enough chamber pressure to hurl a 10.2 kilogram shell at 773 meters per second. That requires a barrel length of 56 calibers, 56 times the bore diameter. Longer barrels mean higher velocity. Higher velocity means flatter trajectory. Flatter trajectory means easier aiming. But there's a problem. The barrel weighs 920 kilograms. Mounted in a turret, and the entire assembly becomes nose-heavy. The turret traverse motors struggle. Franca's team adds counterweights. The turret now rotates at 6 degrees per second in low gear, 19 degrees at high speed with the engine screaming. Then there's the breech. The falling wedge breech block must cycle automatically. After firing, the spent casing ejects. The breech cocks itself, stays open, ready for the loader to slam in the next round. In testing, loaders achieve 6 rounds per minute if everything works perfectly. But tank combat isn't perfect. At the Kummersdorf Proving Grounds, test crews fire hundreds of rounds. The barrel heats to 300 degrees Celsius. The rifling erodes. The gas pressure fluctuates. Engineers adjust propellant charges, redesign the shell driving bands, calculate stress factors on paper covered with equations that look like prayer. November 1942. Final tests. At 1,200 yards, a test gunner scores 5 consecutive hits on a target 16 inches wide. British observers take notes in silence. It doesn't miss, one writes in his report. Production orders double. The Führer demands 1,350 Tigers by year's end. Krupp's workers know they're building nightmares. They just don't know that a simple tungsten shell will someday kill their masterpiece. September 23, 1942. Leningrad Sector. 4 Tigers roll through morning mist near the town of Muga. This is their combat debut, rushed against Guderian's protests. The swampy, forested terrain is exactly wrong for heavy tanks. But Hitler wants his super weapon blooded. The Soviet T-34s appear at 1,100 meters. Gunner Klaus Schmidt peers through his TZEF-9B sight. The target looks small. He adjusts elevation. The commander calls the range. Schmidt's thumb hovers over the electric trigger. The 8.8 speaks. Even inside the tank, the concussion is overwhelming. The shell crosses 1,100 meters in 1.6 seconds. It strikes the T-34's frontal armor, 45 millimeters of sloped steel that has deflected dozens of smaller shells. The tungsten core penetrator punches through, keeps going, exits through the rear plate in a shower of sparks. The T-34 doesn't brew up, it just stops, like someone pulled its plug. Schmidt's loader is already ramming home the next round. The semi-automatic breech cocks with a metallic clack. Another T-34, this one at 900 meters, trying to flank. Second shot. 2 seconds of flight. Impact. The Soviet tank slews sideways, track broken. The crew evacuates, smart men who know when they're outmatched. But in the muck, one Tiger throws a track. Another bellies out in soft ground. German recovery crews spend 8 hours winching them free under Soviet artillery fire. One Tiger is captured intact when its engine fails. The element of surprise, blown. Stalin's engineers will have a Tiger to dissect within weeks. December 1, 1942, Tunisia, Battle of Taberba. 3 more Tigers, this time open desert terrain, perfect killing ground. British tanks die at ranges exceeding 1,600 meters. Shells that should penetrate simply ricochet off Tiger armor. Captain David Erskine watches his squadmen melt away. "It's invulnerable," he radios. "Withdraw, withdraw now." 55 Allied tanks destroyed. 3 Tigers lost, all to mechanical failure, not enemy fire. The legend grows. Darker than it should. February 1943. British War Office, London. Intelligence Officer Major Geoffrey Williams spreads photographs across the table. Knocked out Grants, Crusaders with their turrets blown off, Churchills that should have survived but didn't. Gentlemen, we have a serious problem. The 88mm gun can penetrate 112mm of armor at 1,400 meters. The Churchill's frontal plate? 95mm. It's simple math. Tiger outranges everything the British field, outguns everything, out-armors everything. Production estimates from photo reconnaissance, 60 Tigers per month, soon to be 80. British doctrine must change, immediately. Tank crews receive new orders. Avoid frontal engagement with Tigers. Use numbers. Maneuver for flanking shots. Accept casualties. The 6-pounder anti-tank gun might penetrate Tiger side armor at 600 meters if firing new APCR ammunition. But APCR rounds are scarce. Tungsten is needed elsewhere. Meanwhile, Soviet factories retool. The T-34 gets an 85mm gun. The KV-1 becomes the IS-2 with a 122mm howitzer that can crack a Tiger frontally. The Americans begin preliminary work on the M26 Pershing with its 90mm gun. The technological arms race accelerates. At Kursk in July 1943, 147 Tigers assemble for Operation Citadel. German logistics officers perform miracles keeping them operational. The Soviets know they're coming. Buried anti-tank guns, minefields, layered defenses. Tigers spearhead the offensive. They kill Soviet armor by the dozens. But they also burn. Soviet 85mm guns flank them. Assault guns ambush them. Airstrikes crater the ground around them. The Tigers are powerful, but they're not invincible. Back in Washington, the U.S. Ordnance Department receives an urgent request from Eisenhower's staff. The message is blunt. Current tank armament inadequate against German heavy armor. Require immediate solution. Engineers at Aberdeen Proving Ground begin testing sub-caliber ammunition. Tungsten cores, aluminum sabots, hypervelocity. The counterpunch is being developed. The Tiger's reign is finite. They just don't know it yet. June 13, 1944. Villers-Bocage, France. SS Obersturmführer Michael Whitman spots the British column through binoculars. 60 vehicles stretched along the road to Point 213, Cromwell tanks, Sherman Fireflies, half-tracks, all parked like they're at a parade ground. "Bobby," he tells his gunner, "we're going in." His Tiger 222 emerges from the tree line at 0900 hours. The British don't see him until he's at 400 meters. By then, it's too late. The 88 barks. A Cromwell at the rear of the column explodes. Catastrophic ammunition detonation. Whitman's loader doesn't wait. Next round. The breech clacks shut. Traverse right. Another Cromwell. Its commander is standing in the cupola, pointing, probably screaming into his radio. Fire. The shell takes 0.8 seconds to cross the distance. Penetrates the turret ring. The tank doesn't burn. It simply goes silent. Dead. Whitman drives forward. The British are scrambling now. Tank engines cough to life. A Sherman Firefly swivels toward him, the only tank in the column that can hurt a Tiger. Bobby Wool sees it first. Firefly, 11 o'clock. Whitman traverses. The Firefly fires first. Its 17-pounder shell clangs off the Tiger's frontal armor. A shower of sparks. No penetration. The impact rocks the tank sideways. Whitman's driver keeps rolling. Bobby fires back. The tungsten core shell punches through the Sherman's thinner armor like paper. White phosphorus smoke pours from its hatches. Whitman drives into Villers-Bocage itself. Along the main street, British headquarters tanks try to reverse. Too slow. He knocks out 3 in 90 seconds. A Stuart light tank attempts to ram him. The 88 obliterates it at point-blank range. Then,
Clang! A 6-pounder anti-tank gun, hidden in rubble. The round hits the Tiger's front drive sprocket. Metal shrapnel. The track locks. Whitman can turn, but not advance. 15 minutes. 13 tanks destroyed. The Tiger's reputation just became legend. Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, May 1944. Dr. Robert Patterson stares at penetration test results. The U.S. 76mm M1 gun's standard M62 armor-piercing shell, 88mm penetration at 1,000 yards. The Tiger's frontal armor, 102mm. The math doesn't work. We need more velocity, Patterson says. Velocity we can't get from the barrel. Enter tungsten carbide. Density 15.6 grams per cubic centimeter, twice that of lead, nearly 3 times that of steel. Hardness on the Mohs scale 9.0, just below diamond. The concept is elegant. Take a narrow tungsten penetrator, just 50 millimeters in diameter. Wrap it in an aluminum sabot that fills the 76mm bore. Fire it. The sabot accelerates the lightweight assembly to 3,400 feet per second, roughly 1,036 meters per second. That's 40% faster than standard ammunition. Upon leaving the barrel, the sabot petals strip away. The tungsten core continues alone. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Double the velocity, quadruple the energy. The physics is merciless. At impact, the tungsten core doesn't just penetrate, it burns. Friction generates temperatures exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius. The penetrator liquefies armor from sheer kinetic shock. It's not drilling, it's phase change metallurgy at supersonic speeds. Testing shows the M93 HVAP can penetrate 190 millimeters of vertical armor at point-blank range. At 1,000 yards, 138 millimeters, enough to defeat Tiger frontal armor. Just barely. But there's a catch. Multiple catches. Tungsten is scarce. China supplies most of it, and Japanese forces have disrupted the trade routes. Portugal and Spain provide the rest, but Allied economic warfare limits German access. The Wolfram crisis of 1944 sees tungsten prices spike 3,200%. Production target, 43,000 rounds per month. Reality, production doesn't exceed 10,000 per month until November 1944. Cost per round, classified, but substantial. Each M93 contains 3.5 pounds of tungsten carbide. That's enough material to make precision machine tool bits for 3 months. The bean counters hate it. But it works. From the Diary of Sergeant James Morrison, 3rd Armored Division, September 1944. You don't understand fear until you see a tiger. It's not rational. We know our armor's better than the Germans' light stuff. We know our guns can hurt their medium tanks. But the Tiger, it's different. Yesterday, word came down we'd face Tigers at Aachen. The whole crew went quiet. Johnson started chain smoking. Williams threw up twice. I didn't sleep. When we rolled out, every shadow looked like an 88mm barrel. The psychological toll cuts both ways. Inside Tiger 231, gunner Hans Becker writes home in July 1944. The mechanical breakdowns are worse than combat. We spend more time with wrenches than weapons. Last week, our final drive failed 20 kilometers from the front. We sat there, immobile, while Jabos, fighter bombers, circled overhead. Could do nothing but hide under camouflage nets and pray. The other crews call us furniture movers. They're not wrong. We're slow, we guzzle fuel. The Americans have air superiority. At night, I hear their engines, dozens of them, hundreds. They're producing Shermans faster than we can knock them out. The Tiger is powerful, but I feel like a dinosaur watching the meteor coming. PO interrogation transcripts from Normandy reveal the strain. Tiger commander Otto Schneider captured August 15. We knew about the new American ammunition, tungsten. We called it the equalizer. Before, we hunted Shermans. After August, they hunted us. The psychological shift was profound. Suddenly, we had to fear them at range. Our invincibility, imagined or real, evaporated. Soviet tanker accounts are even more direct. Lieutenant Dmitry Kalinov, IS-2 commander. Tiger crews were brave but exhausted. You could see it in their faces when we captured them. They'd fought for years, watched their comrades burn, knew the war was lost, but still they climbed into those machines. War doesn't discriminate. It grinds everyone.
German intelligence report, September 1944, captured from Wehrmacht archives. New Allied ammunition designated M93 HVAP has been recovered from battlefield positions. Analysis indicates sub-caliber tungsten core with aluminum sabot. Velocity estimated 1,000 plus meters per second. Penetration capability dangerous to all German armor at combat ranges. Recommendation: immediate doctrinal adaptation required. The Germans respond with tactical evolution. Tiger crews receive new orders. Engage at maximum range, 2,000 meters or more, where the HVAP's velocity advantage diminishes. Use terrain more effectively. Ambush tactics over frontal assaults. Never expose side armor. But there's a bitter irony. Germany pioneered tungsten core ammunition. The Panzergranate 40 used tungsten carbide cores since 1940. But by mid-1943, Albert Speer ordered production halted. All tungsten stocks recalled to make machine tool bits, irreplaceable for precision manufacturing. Germany can't wage war without lathes, mills, and drill presses. The Spanish tungsten supply cut off August 1944. Portugal under Allied economic pressure. Monthly German tungsten consumption drops from 170 tons in 1943 to 100 tons in 1944. The Americans, meanwhile, import tungsten from China, South America, and the western United States. Not easily, but consistently. HVAP production, while never meeting demand, continues. Field testing reveals contradictions. The M93 excels against vertical armor, but struggles against sloped plates. It ricochets more readily than standard rounds. Engineers develop the M93A1 variant with improved metallurgy. Then the T4E20. Each iteration slightly better. But quantity remains the problem. By February 1945, the average Sherman crew carries 5 HVAP rounds. Tank destroyer units get priority. They're supposed to kill tanks while Shermans support infantry. In practice, everyone hoards their special ammunition. Radio intercepts capture the frustration. British 17-pounder crews complain about APDS shortages, their equivalent tungsten round. Soviet tankers use sub-caliber ammunition sparingly. The Germans, reading these intercepts, draw incorrect conclusions. They estimate Allied HVAP production at double actual rates. Intelligence failures on both sides. War through fog. But the tide has turned. Tigers still terrify, but they can bleed.
March 1945. Remagen Bridge, Germany. The first Sherman across the Rhine carries 8 HVAP rounds. They'd been delivered the previous week, late war surplus finally catching up to demand. The crew debates whether to save them or use them. They use them. A Tiger at 900 meters, frontal hit, penetration. The once invincible beast burns. The Tiger's combat record defies simple analysis. German sources claim kill ratios of 10 to 1. Allied records show lower figures, perhaps 4-to-1 when mechanical failures are included. But statistics don't capture the psychological impact. For 2 years, the Tiger dominated battlefields from Kursk to Normandy. Its 88mm gun could kill at ranges where Allied tanks couldn't reply. Its armor shrugged off hits that would obliterate lighter vehicles. But the cheap tungsten shell, the M93 HVAP, changed the equation. Not overnight, not decisively, but incrementally. Enough that Allied crews stopped seeing Tigers as death sentences and started seeing them as difficult but killable targets. The ultimate irony? The Tiger's excellence contained its defeat. Germany's over-engineering meant only 1,347 Tiger Is were built. America produced 49,234 Shermans. The Soviet Union built 35,000 T-34s. Numbers overwhelmed quality. Tungsten made the overwhelming possible. Post-war analysis reveals the Tiger I cost 250,000 Reichsmarks and required 300,000 man-hours to build. A Sherman, $45,000 and one-third the man-hours. The economic calculus was never sustainable. Today, Tiger 131, the sole operational Tiger I, resides at Bovington Tank Museum in the United Kingdom. Its 88mm gun is inert, but visitors still feel the presence. The psychological weight remains. Modern tank ammunition abandoned tungsten briefly for depleted uranium, until environmental concerns revived tungsten penetrators. The principle endures. Dense projectiles at high velocity defeat armor. The Tiger taught the world that invincibility is temporary. The HVAP taught the world that solutions need not be elegant, just effective. Every event, number, and name in this documentary has been verified through historical and documented sources.